Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Transforming 45. I'm your host, Lisa Boat. In this podcast, we dive deep into the transformative power of storytelling. I firmly believe that stories have the magical ability to heal, inspire, and connect us. That's why I'm here to bring you the incredible stories of women who have journeyed through life's ups and downs and emerged as their most authentic selves. We'll explore stories of resilience, reinvention, and the courage it takes to embrace change. It's a space where authenticity shines, where the messy and the beautiful moments of life come together to create something truly extraordinary. So, brilliant listeners, get ready for a roller coaster of emotions, a burst of inspiration, and a whole lot of love. Transforming 45 is not just a podcast, it's a movement, a celebration of incredible humans who light up the world. I'm so grateful you are here, and I can't wait to embark on this transformative journey with you. Let's dive in and start transforming together. And welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. This week, I am really excited to have Claudine Francois. I'm so glad that you are here today. Claudine is a board-certified functional medicine practitioner who empowers women to reclaim their health narratives and find lasting solutions. With expertise in uncovering the root causes of chronic issues, she uses sophisticated tests and a holistic approach to craft personalized protocols for energy, clarity, and vitality. I love that, especially the section about getting to the root cause. And I know that that's going to come up in our conversation today. So, Claudine, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Yeah. So, Claudine, tell us, who are you and how did life introduce you?
Oh man, life kind of has to hit me over the head sometimes for me to see things clearly. So I did not start off in the health and wellness field. I started off in corporate accounting because I like numbers and numbers come easy to me and I really like systems. So they're like, "Ooh, accounting's good for you. So let's stick you in here with all the numbers and the systems." And I liked it for a while because there's a bit of excitement when you have all those deadlines. People don't think of accounting as exciting, but it's like, oh, if you don't make this deadline, people don't get paid, So you have a lot of deadlines, which was fun at first. But then as you get up the ranks of corporate and you're responsible for more and more people meeting their deadlines, et cetera. And of course, the corporate environment in general is just very stressful. I started to have negative health effects. So I started to have, I didn't know it at the time, but I was very tired, even though I was, working out and eating healthy. I would get migraines a lot. I was irritable. I had brain fog. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I found out that what I had leaky gut. I had blood sugar handling issues. I had thyroid imbalance. And this is all essentially induced by stress. So I basically stressed myself into having a bunch of health problems because I thought, strangely, in some ways, I thought being stressed was fun. It was a game. And I had always been brought up, my mom grew up on a farm. She's a Polish farmer. My dad was a Green Beret. So it was like, you work hard. That's your job. You work hard and you make money for your family, the end.
Yeah.
So for me, it was this constant, like, I'm just going to work harder. I'm just going to work through it. I'm just going to push. And I pushed myself essentially off a ledge. And as I said, I'm not so bright. So that was actually the first time that this happened. Because I found someone in the functional medicine space who helped me. She did some testing. She helped me figure out the source, those things that I just told you, the leaky gut, the migraines, all that. Figure out why I was getting them, and then help me heal the physical aspects of my body. But what she didn't help me do was figure out, how did I get here in the first place? Like, what were my psychological patterns, or my patterns in general, that were forcing me to push myself to the brink? So then about 4 years later, here I am again with similar issues, but now worse, because in addition to all those ones I mentioned, now I had H. pylori, now I had candida, now I had a worse leaky gut. I had different food sensitivities. And so that's when I really got focused on functional medicine. And in this transition period, I had switched from corporate accounting to health coaching, essentially. But then I really started working with my clients and I thought, I'm not seeing all the things. Like I can help them with the basics, right? I can help them with, get better sleep. Let's drink our water. Let's eat healthy foods. Let's get some movement in. But for some people, that wasn't enough. And I imagine a lot of the people you're listening to are like, yep, yep, yep. Been there, done that, but I still can't lose the stubborn weight, or I still have brain fog. I still have irritability, food sensitivities, whatever it is. So that's when I started getting into functional medicine. And that's when I went through my second healing journey.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you. There's two parts here that I think are really important to get into because I see it in the work that I do as well, coming from that holistic perspective. But it is that idea that stress, right? Like, and if I asked you the question now, like as you are now,
No.
right? And what was the what was the shift that helped you really come to put your finger on that being the thing? Because I think that might be an underlying pattern for a lot of people, thinking that stress is fun or that stress just is our natural.
Well, we are conditioned in this world now. Stress is considered to be normal, and it's almost like a competition. I'm more stressed than you. I have more going on than you, and therefore I'm a better human.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
I am more productive. I'm smarter. I am in every way better because I am more stressed and I have more going on in my life. I would say what led me to realize that. Well, one thing that I learned, it was kind of an aha moment when I went through my functional medicine training. There's this, it's almost like a bell curve of stress. And the reason why I thought stress was fun was in the beginning, I was at the top of the bell curve because you get this cortisol rush.
Right.
It's anti-inflammatory. You get all of the excitement hormones and, it actually feels good for a while. But the thing is, you can't sustain it. Because our body is designed, when you're running away from that tiger, you have that stress response, it goes up, and then it's supposed to come down again, right? You've escaped the tiger. You are alive.
Yes. Yeah.
But in our modern life, it doesn't go down, right? We're constantly getting the emails and the text messages and shuttling the kids around to everywhere. I was just telling a friend of mine today, I'm like, remember when we were kids and we had to get ourselves to all the places? And now our kids need to be taken everywhere. What is that all about? But it's constant.
I know. Yeah, there are some things from an 80s childhood that could really use a resurrection in today's culture and society.
Yes, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. It's as I was listening to you, there were so many things that came up about, what's happening, what my own story is. It's very similar. And it's interesting. I hadn't ever thought about stress being fun at the beginning of my teaching career. And as you frame it that way, I actually can see that where it was like it's also there's an element of excitement of being in the adult world that you had been planning for your whole life up until that point. I'm going to get emotional because I hadn't thought about this in this way before. So hang with me for a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you were planning for your career, it's this constant forward trajectory and thinking about what's coming. And then you enter into that world and there's the initial excitement of, I'm here. I did it. I accomplished my goals. So along with that, the first teaching is stressful always. The first couple of years are even more so because you're like, I literally, teachers college did not prepare me for any of these things. I don't know what I'm doing. Inevitably, though, there's a community of people who are also in a similar place. There are ideally mentors in the building. So although it is stressful, there is an element of fun where you're starting to begin a new community of humans as well. And at that point in time, there also aren't necessarily everybody's journey is different. However, from my personal experience, I didn't have all the other additional responsibilities that I moved into as well. Right. So when I started teaching, I was
baby.
Right. I was 24 years old. I was just newly married and we didn't have children. We didn't have a home. We didn't have like all of the things. So there's more space to manage that cortisol rush.
Mm.
And as we start adding in more roles that we play for ourselves and for other people, the stress in the work doesn't decline. Right. So now we have this intersection of I can't keep.
Exactly, because going back to that bell curve, once you pass the top and you start heading down the other side, cortisol, even though it originally gives you that rush and that anti-inflammatory response, it's called catabolic. So it actually breaks down pieces of your body, muscle fibers, ligaments, all the things starts breaking down your body to get that energy source. And so it
Right.
starts disrupting all of your systems. So digestion stops, metabolism stops. People always ask me, why is my thyroid not working? Are you stressed? Reproduction stops. So, people who are having fertility issues, it could be a factor. Everything else stops. So that's when we start noticing the symptoms. Right. Once we're on that other side of the bell curve, that's when we start thinking, gosh, why do I feel sluggish? Or why do I have food intolerances all of a sudden? Or why am I irritable, angry? I mean, name any symptom that people have, right?
Yes.
All of the things that I now realize are associated with stress, but for so long just thought this is part of adulting.
Yeah. And thank you for stating it that way, because I do think that that also is a sort of prevailing narrative in our world that, well, yes, that is just part of adulting, that you feel like garbage all the time. And that's really dangerous, right? Because it encourages us to continue to just push through, right? This narrative of, yes, you might be having digestion issues. Maybe you're having heart palpitations. In my case, my hair was falling out. And it's this like, well, yeah, but we just keep going because that's what it is to be an adult, and you don't complain.
And that's dangerous. I call it, it's kind of like the signals on your car, the lights that pop up, the flash, the warning lights. Like the symptoms are our body's warning lights. And it's kind of like if you ignore the warning light on your car's not magically going to get better. What's going to happen? It's going to get worse.
Yeah, it's going to break down on this.
And so when I have this way of putting things, I say, you remember the game Whack-A-Mole that you would do at the little the fairs and whatever? You have a symptom pop up. What do you go to the doctor? They put a Band-Aid on it. So you have another symptom pop up over here. What do? They put a Band-Aid on it. It's not actually addressing where are these moles coming from and getting to the root cause, which is, we were talking about root cause. Yes. Because that's what we truly need to do. That's why we're having all these symptoms. It's our body saying, hello, over here, I need attention. There's something going on that you need to address.
Yeah. And I actually was just going to pull that back up too. What is that root cause? Because people think that symptoms are the problem. Symptoms are not the problem. And I feel like I've been banging this drum for a while now, that when you're experiencing symptoms, it is your body's way of communicating that there is actually something else happening that you need to pay attention to. So how do you work with people to help them connect to what that?
Well, as I said, I spent 25 years in accounting, right? So I love numbers. I love data. So when I got into functional medicine, I was like, oh, wait, there's a report for everything? I can actually test somebody's body and see all of these things. I'm like, I was in heaven. Like the seas parted, the cloud,
I love that.
Great. So yeah, we have tests. So we have a series of tests. And because I specifically work with women who are 40 and above, I have narrowed it down to three, I don't call them basic, but 3 tests that I start with, foundational tests.
Okay.
That I have determined can really get us to peel back the layers and get an overall picture as to what is going on in the body. And the reason I stress overall picture is because if you think about traditional medicine, everyone in traditional medicine has a piece of the puzzle, right? Like your cardiologist has the heart, your GI doctor is looking at your gastrointestinal, everyone has a piece, but they're like, this is my piece of the puzzle. I don't want to look at any of these other pieces and nobody gets to touch my piece. And I'm like, okay, let's put all these pieces down. I want to see the big picture so I can see how these things are all interacting, because they truly are all interacting.
Yes.
People will come to me and say, oh, I have sluggish bile in my gallbladder. They want to take my gallbladder out, and I have high cholesterol, and I have like all these hormonal issues. And, no one seems to be able to figure out what's going on. And I'm like, those things are all connected. If you have estrogen dominance, it's going to cause your liver to not be able to pull the cholesterol out. It's going to end up as sluggish bile in your gallbladder. Like there are all these interconnecting systems. But if you just go to I have a client, for example, she went to this one doctor and he's like, oh, you just need to get your gallbladder out. She's like, that's a vital organ. Should I just take it? Like I don't need bile for anything. This was extra. We just took this in for fun. I don't know.
Yeah. And bile is important, right? Like that, it is an essential ingredient in digestion. So
Right.
Then there's going to be additional, and then that's where the spiraling begins, right? Because you treat one thing, which has repercussions and consequences for another system in your body. And if we don't look at how those talk to each other and how they're connected, then that's why we end up in this constant spiral of having to treat the next thing and then the next.
Right. Because we're never actually getting to the root cause.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of like blood pressure. Your body didn't just wake up and decide, I want to have high blood pressure. There's a reason. Is it calcification of the arteries because of stress that's pulled calcium out of your bones and stuck it in there? Is it, whatever it could be, there's a reason for the thyroid not working properly. The thyroid doesn't wake up one day and say, I need a me day. I'm just not going to function today. I don't feel like it. Usually it's compensating. I mean, your body's trying to do the right thing for you. It's trying to work around whatever roadblock is put in front of it. And so it's doing its best to wind around these roadblocks. And unless we address the roadblock, we're going to continue to work against the body.
Yeah. And then that also puts us in that place of being in a deficit, right? So we start seeing ourselves from a deficit perspective. And one of the things I have noticed lately is this idea of I need to fix whatever is happening. And I'm going to look to 1,000 different external sources to do that. I don't know if you've seen this in some of the and it is from the intention of trying to, be good to your body and to do some healing. But a trend I'm noticing is that becomes the fix. It's the constant search for what is going on. Does this make sense to you?
So you're saying you're kind of searching through all the things going on in your body and just continually trying to fix the thing?
Yeah, or I'm trying to find the word for it right now because it's a pattern that I've just recently noticed in like humans around me, but it becomes this like constant. It's almost like trying to find the fix becomes the new pattern. Like that becomes the distraction. So it's like, well, I tried this and that thing didn't work. Or so like really specifically, it's when we think about food and food issues. And again, going back to not actually getting to the root cause, but it's like, well, I've noticed bloating. I've got some bloating going on. So I'm going to try keto, or I'm going to try paleo, or I'm going to try doing this digestion program that I just saw and thought I would try this. So it's almost like that becomes the new.
Yeah. And it's so easy because in social media now, there's always someone telling you, do this thing, do this thing. I mean, I see it. I love my clients. I have one client who will send me all these TikTok videos.
Yeah.
And it'll be someone saying, you should never do a food sensitivity test and they're bogus. Or another person saying, you need to do a parasite cleanse, even if you don't know that you have a parasite and you don't know what kind it is, but you should do a parasite cleanse. Yeah. And there's so many people yelling at you, oh, you need to take more vitamin D, or you need to take more magnesium, or there's so much information out there that A, it could be overwhelming. But B, and this is what I think is the dangerous part, it's not unique to your body. Which is why I love the testing, because then because someone will ask me, should I take probiotics? And my answer is, I don't know. I haven't seen your microbiome test. I don't know if you have an overgrowth of good or bad bacteria. I don't know if probiotics are going to be good for you or bad for you until I see the data. And most people don't have the data.
Yes. And I love that response. And I think that's exactly what I was getting to. And that is that there is this constant noise of things that you should be doing. And it really is, again, circling back to that concept of the root cause. Like, let's really get to the root cause and have it be specific to you, because every person's body is totally different, and no one on the internet can tell you exactly what's going on the inside of your body if they don't know you, if they haven't engaged in conversation, because there's all of the physical components, but I also wanted to weave into the conversation the element of the emotional piece as well. So we can do, like you said, the second part of your journey. And I certainly experienced that as well. Again, my story is very similar to yours, with the universe hitting me over the head multiple times in lots of different ways. Through universe uses all kinds of modalities. It's fascinating. And we can focus on the physical body, and that is important. But it cannot be done in isolation without looking at what is going on with your mental health, with your emotional health, with the heart and soul as well. Because just as you said, all the physical components are connected. The heart and the soul are connected into all of those internal.
What I love about this, and I'm getting chills actually just formulating the thought, is that one of the tests that I do, it's called the hair tissue mineral analysis test. So we take a hair sample and we can see your mineral balances. But certain mineral patterns will tell us certain psychological patterns. So there are a couple patterns, like one pattern, if you have a really high calcium loss, it's called a calcium shell. That's a trauma response. Your body is freaked out about something. Your body has, because what it does is when you're stressed, it pulls calcium out of your bones and it sticks it in your soft tissue like your hair, or some people get them as gallstones, kidney stones, that calcification of the arteries we were talking about, so high blood pressure. But when it gets above a certain number, we can see it's chronic. It's basically a trauma response.
That's fascinating. I had not heard that connection before. Like, everything about what I know and believe absolutely knows that the body shows what the emotional body feels. But that is really important information for people to know, because that is the truth of how we get to the root cause of things. Right? Because,
and I'm not trained as a psychologist, right? But I can see the pattern and I can say, okay, we need to incorporate another person or another modality into this.
yes.
So we either need to go to a counselor or do EFT or EMDR or motion code or something to unpack this for you. Because there's something you're holding on to. And that's only one pattern. There are lots of patterns.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's fascinating that we can get that data.
That is fascinating. And it's so important, because until you can do all you want to the body, but until that emotional healing happens, I call it anchors, right? Like, the physical body has nothing to anchor to do that deep and sustained either change.
Absolutely. And so, to your earlier point, until I started working through I'll just call them neuroses, for lack of a better word, my constant need to push myself to the brink and do all the things and make all the money, until I addressed those, how could I heal? Because I had this constant kind of hamster wheel going on inside of me, this constant stress response, this constant cortisol rush that wasn't allowing my body, the opposite of cortisol, which is fight or flight, is the rest and digest. How could my body rest, digest, and repair if I was constantly on alert? I couldn't. So I had to address that. And it's actually probably the hardest part of the healing process.
Yes.
Because you can't just take a pill for it.
No. Well, I mean, there are some pills you can take, but again, that's not getting to the root cause, right?
Right.
It's covering a symptom. And I'm really glad that you said that because there's not enough energy in the body to heal if all of that subconscious energy is going toward one of the things I get my clients to do is like squeeze their hands together really, really tightly. I'm like, just squeeze it, squeeze it.
Whoa.
How much energy is that taking?
Mm-hmm.
That's taking a ton of energy, and that's what your body is doing around holding those emotional wounds, right? And when you can feel it, you can feel that energy start to flow again instead of being.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's super interesting is I start to see patterns in certain people's test results and their symptoms. So, for example, someone who's had trauma could also have recurring UTIs. And UTIs can be caused from a large, I mean, for example, women who are over 45 have a much larger example or instance of recurring UTIs because our levels of estrogen are dropping, and estrogen helps keep the nice pH going in that area. And when you don't have that nice pH, other bacteria can get in. I mean, UTIs can be caused from other things as well, but having a UTI is also can be correlated with unresolved trauma. So there's just so many ways that our body tries to tell us it needs help. And I know so often we separate the physical and the mental, emotional, but they are all involved.
They really are. They are so deeply connected. And it's interesting you said that. So when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I had constant recurring UTIs. And in another conversation, it's interesting. I had this week, a woman was talking about it's just at this stage of life often where unresolved trauma will really start coming to the surface again because our bodies are going through a significant transition again. So it's like there's little earthquakes going on that are unearthing things. And that's an important piece of the puzzle for me that I hadn't made a connection to. That my body, even then, was sending me physical symptoms, that there was a trauma that I was not dealing with. And it's really only coming to the surface now. And so in the work that you do, in this whole conversation we've been having, I've been thinking about, and then now, often we're at the peak of our careers. So we hold a lot of responsibility. Our family structures are all going to look different, but a lot of the time there's still responsibility for children at whatever stage they're at, as well as parents. So there's these really big squeezes coming from all aspects of our life. And then we layer in perimenopause and menopause. And for the majority of women, as I'm coming to understand, we don't even know that perimenopause is what's happening. So we have these physical symptoms that have been occurring because of the mass amounts of stress that we're holding. And then we open the door to perimenopause and everything.
Yep. You hit the nail on the head. Yes, we have. And it's interesting because one of the things I tell my clients is that it's almost like you get to your 40s and your body says, you know what? I'm over you not taking care of me. So, like, I'm just going to stop compensating for all your bad behavior until you figure it out. I like to personify the body in case you've noticed. Give it a little personality.
I love that. And I think that's a really important framework, just like a stance to look through. And that is sometimes the body's best way of caring for us is to stop caring. Right, and reveal everything that it has been covering up for us so that we don't have to manage it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, like when you were in your 20s, you could go on a bender and show up the next morning for work, right? Like you could get wasted, you could come in with no sleep, hungover, you'd be fine.
Yes.
But can you imagine doing that now?
No. Oh my God.
No. I'm all mama needs her 9 hours. Okay.
I know, it's funny. We just had dinner on the weekend with really good friends of ours who we've been friends since those early 20 years. And we were reminiscing about some of those things. And our kids were at the table and they were all like, You people used to do that stuff? Yeah, shockingly, we did, and absolutely could not now. Nor do I have any desire to stay up past 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as you alluded to, what most women kind of start thinking about menopause when they start having these symptoms that are
Yes.
technically perimenopause, right? The
Yeah.
hot flashes, the night sweats, the mood swings, the insomnia, weight gain, especially around the middle, foggy
Mhm.
brain, that bone loss sometimes, low libido. And they start going, wait a sec, what's happening here? I used to be able to stay up till midnight working on reports. I used to be able to, think through complex situations at any given point. I used to sleep like a baby. I used to not have mood swings and I was steady Eddie, or, even things like depression can pop up more if we aren't taking care of ourselves, if we aren't prioritizing us,
Yes.
because we've been so good for the last 20, 30 years of making everybody else's needs a priority.
Mhm.
And most of the women I work with, they just think, I mean, they are superwomen, but they just think they can go on forever doing all the things for all the people and ignoring all of those whack-a-moles, ignoring all of
Yes.
those symptoms that are popping up because they're inconvenient. They're
Yes.
very inconvenient.
They are. And one of the things that I try to work with people on is shifting the mindset away from it being inconvenient. Because yes, I have this love-hate relationship with that superwoman narrative where if I could be a superwoman for myself, that would be great. That would be a really good use of that title where I am a superwoman at taking care of all of my own needs. But it's that the superwoman narrative is that we ignore our needs to take care of everybody else's. And it's when the body says, okay, we have to stop playing that role because one, where has it gotten us? Right? And also where has it gotten the people around us? Sometimes when we are playing that superhero, when we're playing that savior role for other people, it means that they're not playing that role in. So when we can sort of position it as this is a gift, it's going to be uncomfortable for a little while, but this is a time where you get to pay attention to yourself and reclaim all of the pieces of yourself that you left behind because you felt like they weren't, like they didn't fit in whatever narrative was that you were writing. Or
Amen. Well, and just to underscore that, these symptoms that we are noticing, we think of them as normal because everybody has them. But just because they're common doesn't mean they're normal. Our body is not designed to have all these problems, but it is giving us the heads up that, hey, you're not addressing something that really needs to be addressed.
yes.
So there are things that can be done to not have hot flashes, night sweats. I actually had a client, she's in her early 50s, and she was like, Claudine, I finally stopped having hot flashes because of some of the testing that we did, right? And then the resulting protocols. And it was like, yeah, you don't need to have them. There's usually an imbalance going on. Granted, as you were saying earlier, we're in that sandwich generation where we're taking care of kids, we're taking care of parents. And I think of it as a cup that's being filled up. When we were in our 20s, your cup is like barely filled, right? As you get older, the cup gets fuller and fuller, or more full. I don't know which is accurate. More full. And then all of a sudden it gets too full and starts overflowing. That's when we start to, our body is dropping all the balls. We're dropping all the balls. But it doesn't have to get to that point. One, we have to start culling our responsibilities. We don't, like you said, we don't have to be superwoman to all the people because they need to be super people for themselves too.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, your kids might benefit from learning how to do their own laundry. I'm just saying, you know, maybe they should learn how to cook a meal.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we want them to be functional humans, right? Like that really is that's the purpose of parenting is to help our young humans be functional humans in the world. And it is really important that they have those skills. And they are, one of the things that I love about I wax poetic about the Ontario kindergarten curriculum a lot on this show.
Oh.
But one of the main foundational principles of it is that they are competent and capable.
I love
So
that.
so even at 3 years old, we look at them as
That's very empowering for them.
right. And it's a shift that we could also make for ourselves, right? When we know that when we view others from the lens of being competent and capable, it means that we can release responsibility for that, because I need to be competent and capable for me in my way, and model that for the people around me. And if I believe that everyone around me is competent and capable, woo, liberation.
Yes. Well, because the problem is usually what I see is that a woman has gone so far down the path of being superwoman that her body is forcing her to stop.
Yeah.
She literally cannot function anymore. And that's when I see her, which is unfortunate, right? I mean, I'm great. I'm happy to help her, but it would be wonderful if more people started addressing these things earlier so they didn't get to the point where they can barely make it through the day, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where I wanted to circle back to what you were saying about it. The experience of perimenopause or menopause doesn't have to be any one way. And the symptoms that you have don't have to just continue. Right. There's lots of preventative work that we can do, which is why I think this conversation is so important for one, humans in general. Everybody needs to know and understand how human bodies function, whether they live in that skin or not. And for younger women to understand the full cycle of what they are going to experience, so that they know what they can start doing well in advance, so that they don't get to this space of being burnt out and needing to have lots of repair before they can start healing.
And I will give you a good example of that. I have a client who's 29 years old
Amazing.
who basically stressed her and burnt herself out to the point that she was going through this a lot earlier.
Yeah.
And she wasn't going through menopause a lot earlier, but she was having all of these symptoms earlier. But there are women who are in their early 40s going through menopause because they have stressed themselves out to the point where their body's like, yeah, okay, we don't need this other function. We don't need to make babies anymore because you got too much going on. We're just going to turn everything off.
Yes.
And be done. I mean, my own mother, now granted, we take everything my mother says with a grain of salt, but she says she went through menopause at 39 because of the inordinate amount of stress that she was under running a cosmetics company at that time. So you can stress your body out into very extreme circumstances. We don't want that to happen. I mean, some people can stress themselves into autoimmune disorders. So there are so many things that we can do to take care of ourselves before then. I mean, I don't know if you want to go into that.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that it's so sad that sleep is so denigrated, right? I mean, I don't know if you had this when you were in corporate. When I was in corporate, it was like, I could get by on 4 hours. I could get by on 6 hours. You know, it was a competition to see who could get the least amount of sleep and still work.
Yes.
And I'm like, a human body needs between 7 and 9 hours of sleep every night to do its nightly maintenance cycle. It's doing its repair work. If you don't turn off your computer, it's not going to work well, right? It's not going to sluggish. You know, if you have all these windows up and you don't shut everything down every once in a while, give that little reboot, it's going to be clunky. It's going to be slow. Things aren't going to work properly. Same thing with your body. So the only challenge is a lot of women at this stage of life have trouble sleeping. Either I don't call it, it is called stage 1 or phase 1 or phase 2 insomnia. So phase 1 being you have trouble falling asleep, and that's usually because our minds are going and we have all the things. And there are supplements that can address that. There are lifestyle changes that can address that. You know, for example, some people really love those sauna blankets, those infrared sauna blankets, because those really help relax you and start the repair process. But even meditation, doing some light stretching yoga, helping, like giving yourself a bedtime routine, right?
Yes.
To help fall asleep. But then the type 2 insomnia, where you wake up in the middle of the night or you wake up between 3 and 4 a.m., that's usually a sign of a couple of things. Either you had alcohol the night before and your body just processed it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be parasites or gut bugs because those party at night when we're asleep.
And
And then it raises our cortisol level and wakes us up. So there are other things to look at, but sleep is super, super key.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the core four, right? Sleep, stress management, nutrition, and fitness and or movement. And it always, when I'm working with people, I say it is not magic. And it's the same four principles that are essential for health and well-being in general. And there are lots of ways that we can work with them to improve the quality. And sleep is so key, right? Because when we are sleeping well, yes, our body has time to recover and recoup. And when we are rested, we have more energy to give toward preparing nutritious food, and we have more energy to put toward exercising and moving in a way where we don't get injured or we don't overexhaust ourselves. So it's this interconnected web of practices that make a
and then you said it great. I don't even want to improve on that. You said, eating healthy, strength training, like, moving your body, eating healthy foods. I would say blood sugar handling, right? Like making sure that we're eating enough fiber and healthy
protein.
foods, and proteins. But then when those basics aren't working, that's when you need to start checking other things. Check your mineral balances, check your gut, test for gut dysfunction. What's going on? I call it under the hood. Because your gut, if you think about your gut, it takes up so much real estate in our bodies, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you go from your mouth to the end, then if you uncoiled everything, how long would it be? I don't even remember. But
yes.
it's huge. Space.
Yes.
So it takes up an inordinate amount of energy.
Yes.
And when it's not functioning properly, it impacts every system of our body. It impacts our hormone function, it impacts our thyroid function, it impacts liver detoxification systems. I mean, there's so many things that not having a well-functioning gut we call it a cascade of events.
Yeah.
It's kind of like not an avalanche, but when you have like the snowball running down the hill and it just gets bigger and bigger.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it can impact all those things. And if you haven't checked your gut, your mineral balances, that's definitely somewhere you can look. Hormone balances, although personally, I prefer to look at gut with hormone.
Yes.
Because your hormones could be off because of the gut, and of course, reducing stress. And you're reducing your stressors, whether they're internal, like gut issues, or external, the emails that never stop, or the text messages, or the people in your life that are making your life challenging, trying to create these boundaries around what you have coming in so that you are not overwhelmed. You are not the cup that's overflowing with all of the things. You have some extra wiggle room in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for all of this wisdom today. There's lots of pieces that I am pulling out of this conversation that I didn't know. So I'm sure that listeners will having lots of light bulbs going on. So if you want to work with Claudine, I'm going to attach all of her links in the show notes so you can access her there. And we had been talking earlier about a hormone health quiz that you created.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to have an idea as to, are my hormones out of whack? Is it the hormones? Then you can take the quick quiz. It'll give you your results. It'll give you some actionable things you can do. Yeah. Which I think is probably the most important, because it's one thing to know you have hormone issues. It's another thing to know what to do about them. So you're more than welcome to do that. It's absolutely free.
That's great. And that will be linked in the show notes as well. And then if you have questions from doing that, please reach out to Claudine, to myself, because the more we work together to create this perimenopause empowered time in our lives where we can reclaim and take all of this goodness back and live in a really functional way going forward. We're good old High School Musical. We're all in this together.
Yay! We got this.
Okay. Thanks, Claudine. This was great.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on this transformative journey today. Your support means the world to me. If you resonated with our conversations and want to uplift the Transforming 45 community, Here's what you can do. 1, subscribe and share. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value here, share it with your friends, family, and anyone seeking inspiration. 2, leave a review. On whatever platform you are listening on, your words can make a significant impact and help others find their way to these transformative stories. 3, connect. Join the conversation on my social media platforms. Follow me at lboat for updates, behind the scenes, and more heart-centered content. And 4, guest recommendations. If you know someone whose story could inspire someone else, reach out and let me know. I love connecting with diverse voices that carry the power to transform lives. Remember, it is your support that is the magic in my mission. Together,